Nadler says will be destroyed in court.
Let's talk about this with Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren of California. She is the #2 ranking Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, also an attorney who knows the law very well. So let's go to that issue of Nadler saying that this will be destroyed in court and the courts will come out on your side on this. Is that the next step? Take Hope Hicks to court?
Well, I assume whether it's Hope Hicks or any of the other former employees or current employees of the White House, the assertion that they're completely immune from answering any question from Congress is ridiculous. There's no basis in law for that. And that needs to be sorted out and will be, I am confident, in the favor of the People's House Congress.
Here is how some of your Republicans on the committee put it.
This is not something that we need to be doing. When we have a border crisis, when we have other things going on, this is just another press release day for the Democrats.
I think this is a complete waste of time.
Explain to the American people why you think this hearing was a valuable use of time, because you guys did go into this knowing that the White House was going to exert this executive privilege.
Well, not all the questions to Ms. Hicks were about her time in the White House. There were also questions directed to her for her time in the campaign, which she did answer. In fact, my questions were about that. So we did get some information. It's clear from her answers, and she was under oath, so I assume she was telling the truth, that she did not have a broad understanding of all of the elements of the campaign. However, she did provide information about other people whose testimony might prove fruitful to the committee in getting a fuller understanding of some of these issues. So that was very helpful.
What was the most useful thing she told you?
Well, you'll see the transcripts, but identifying names of some of the individuals and some of the relationships. I had a question really about the Russians, which was the origin of this whole thing, and the Jill Stein campaign, which she did acknowledge was a subject of discussion, but she really was not able to provide any meat on those bones.
Understood. So we're waiting for the transcripts on that. Let me ask you about the Mueller report. You are one of the members of Congress who actually read the full Mueller report, so thank you for that. You got the redacted portions and some of the underlying documents from Volume 2 of the report yesterday. You've read them. What's the most important thing you saw?
Well, there weren't very many redactions on Volume 2. I did read them, and it was no surprise, and it didn't really provide additional information. The evidence has been kept at the Department of Justice, maximally inconvenient for members of Congress to go read. So I'm going there later today because I have to personally go through and to start reading the actual underlying evidence. Now, it's my understanding from our staff who's been over there that not all of the evidence has yet been provided. They're rolling it out, but it's only on Volume 2. I want Volume 1. I want the unredacted versions and the underlying evidence. We don't have that yet, but we have been assured we will get it.
Let me ask you about the impeachment issue, because you have an interesting history here and knowledge base, because you were a congressional staffer during the impeachment proceedings against President Nixon. You were a congresswoman during the impeachment of President Clinton. And so far, you have not called for the impeachment of President Trump. During the Clinton impeachment proceedings, you called this, quote, an effort to undo an election and, quote, a pretty sad day for the country. Do you share that same sentiment now?
The standard for impeachment is high crime and misdemeanor. And actually on my website, I've posted a very interesting report from 1974 on what is a high crime and misdemeanor. It's not just a crime. And basically it's activity that's so serious that it basically upends the structure of the constitutional republic. And so that's the standard. Mr. Clinton engaged in a tawdry sex affair and then lied about it. That's not the kind of activity, although not admirable, that is shaking the foundation of the nature of government. It was a partisan effort to get rid of it.
But by not pushing for impeachment now, it sounds like at this point what you've seen doesn't make you believe that President Trump has done that.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
In both cases, in both Nixon and Clinton, the committee reviewed actual evidence. You know, we have a report now from Mr. Mueller. I'm glad to have the report. But you don't move off in an important constitutional proceeding based on a report any more than a prosecutor would prosecute based on a report. You have to examine the evidence and the fact witnesses. We are now doing that.
Okay, and you're going to see some of that underlying evidence today. Congresswoman, before you go, I'd like to get your read on your fellow Democrat, former Vice President Joe Biden, who made remarks this week at a closed-door fundraiser praising the ability to work with well-known racist segregationists in the Senate years ago. That was very offensive to many, including 2 African-American senators running for president, Senator Cory Booker and Senator Kamala Harris. Do you think Joe Biden should apologize, and are you comfortable with what he said?
Well, honestly, I didn't hear the statement because I was in meetings all day. But I'll tell you what, sometimes different states and different districts send us racists to the House of Representatives or to the Senate. Because they're here, we have to work with them. That continues today. You have to get stuff done. That doesn't mean that you have any respect or adherence to their racist views.
Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, I appreciate your time this morning, and please come back.